Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the second episode of the second season of Crunch Time with Kruck. Once again, I told you guys we're doing it from a little different location. We're filming from my bedroom this time. Added some new things to the room in case you're paying attention. Over here, got a minion sitting there, and then we got a basketball hoop right up there. Just trying to add things to the room, make it more sportsy for all you guys at home. As we get started today, we're going to be looking at a lot of baseball today, as well as some couple other things. Let's get started with postseason play. We're going to start with the NBA play-in tournament. So the Warriors have been eliminated after losing back-to-back games to the Lakers, followed by the Grizzlies. Both games were super close. Steph Curry is in the running for MVP. There has been some talk, though. Damian Lillard was very upset last year that he wasn't even considered for MVP after putting up such great numbers. Last year, he was told that it was because he was an 8-seeded team. Steph Curry is one of the front runners right now for the MVP, and he led a team to the 8th seed, which got him a play-in tournament spot, and then didn't even make the postseason. So, Steph Curry's kind of in some hot water with other point guards throughout the league, but then again, he does have superstars on his side like LeBron James and other players who really think that he is an MVP caliber player. This would be his third MVP, but since we're on the topic of MVP, there's a huge snub that nobody has even been talking about, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, the man has been doing phenomenal the entire season. When you compare him head-to-head with Nikola Jokic, one of the other MVP frontrunners, he has better stats in every single one of the major categories, and I think that's something you can't really overlook. But back to what we were talking about. So the Spurs and the Hornets have both been eliminated from the East. So the East is now set. The Celtics got the Celtics have locked in that 7th spot. They'll be playing the Nets. And then the Washington Wizards will be playing the 76ers. So a red, white, and blue combo for the 8 versus 1 seed. And there's some really bad blood if you've been following the NBA for more than about 6 months. Joel Embiid and Russell Westbrook do not like each other in the slightest, so that'll definitely be fun to watch moving forward. It's kind of becoming a returning theme. The last 3 episodes we've had Tim Hackett on to talk about the NHL playoffs, but we're going to do it once again. So Tim, take it away. What do you got for us?
Hey, Kruck, thanks for having me on. It's Tim Hackett. We're about halfway through the first round of the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. Let's catch you up on what you might have missed, starting with the East Division 2 series that I expected would be super close, and they have been so far. Pittsburgh and the New York Islanders, the number 1 versus the number 4 seed in that division, but that series is tied at 2 games apiece through 4 games. The Islanders have won both games in which Ilya Sorokin has started in the goal. They've lost the 2 games in which he hasn't started, so I imagine he will be the starter going forward. We've seen a couple of overtimes, a couple of 1-goal games in this series. Evgeny Malkin being back for Pittsburgh is probably a good thing, but I don't know that he's playing at 100%, so maybe it ends up being a bad thing for Pittsburgh. Usually you want one of the best players in the league out there, but sometimes having a player at less than 100% ends up hurting you rather than having a lesser player operating at 100%. So I'm curious to see how Pittsburgh plays him going forward, but if he gets back and anywhere close to his normal form, that can only be a good thing for the Penguins, but I would not be surprised regardless if this series ends up going 7. Game 5 is scheduled for Monday night. The other series in this division, Boston against Washington, has been super close as well. The first 3 games in that series all went to overtime before Boston kind of broke it open with a convincing 4-1 win in Game 4 on Friday. Game 5 is later on Sunday. A lot of people are thinking that this series is wrapped up and Boston is going to win. I don't think it's that clear-cut at all. I think Washington has played solid this series. I think Boston deserved to win Game 1. They played pretty well, ended up losing. They did not deserve to win Game 2. Didn't play all that great and still ended up winning. So I think this series could go either way. Boston obviously is in command, but it would not surprise me at all if Washington wins on Sunday and forces a Game 6. In that case, I expect Boston might wrap it up at home on Tuesday, but I don't think this series is anywhere close to over. In the Central Division, the Hurricanes and the Predators, Carolina owned the first 2 games of the series. Nashville finally got its offense going in Game 3 and won it in overtime. I've seen some rumors that the series is starting to flip one way or another. I don't think there's any truth to that. I think Carolina still has this series in its control. There are rumors that James Reimer or Peter Mrazek, probably Mrazek, will start Game 4 for Carolina in goal on Sunday just to give Alex Nedeljkovic a little bit of a break. I don't see any problem with that. Mrazek has been excellent for them this season. All three goalies have been good, and even though Nedeljkovic got the shutout in Game 2, he wasn't at his best in Game 3, so I don't see any problem with going to Mrazek in Game 4. Your team's still ahead 2-1. You've got three strong goaltenders, and if Mrazek wins, then you ride him. If he loses, then you go back to Nedeljkovic with the series tied at 2 games apiece in Raleigh, and it's a best of 3. So I don't see any problem with that at all. I think it's a win-win, and regardless, I think Carolina still ends up winning this series. Tampa Bay against Florida has been unbelievably fun. Lots of end-to-end action, a lot of offense. Both starting goaltenders for Florida have been pulled at one point in this series, so there's rumors they'll go to Spencer Knight, the true rookie, who's one of the best goaltending prospects in recent history. He might start Game 5 on Monday. We'll see. Tampa Bay leads it 3-1. Nikita Kucherov has been fantastic, the reigning league MVP at 4 points in Game 4, but left in the third period due to an injury, so we'll see about his status. John Cooper, their head coach, had no updates as of Sunday whether Kucherov or Mikhail Sergachev, who was also injured by a cheap play from Florida in the third period on Saturday, he had no updates as to whether they'll be available for Monday, so if neither of them are able to play, wouldn't surprise me if Florida pulls out in Game 5, but I think Tampa Bay's got this series on lock, and it's only a matter of time before they win it. They could even take it in Game 5 on Monday. The North Division finally got started after a little bit of a delay because there were some other teams that had to finish up regular season series like we outlined earlier. The surprise so far, Winnipeg over Edmonton. The Jets lead that series 2-0, and the Oiler offense has been absolutely absent so far. Connor Hellebuck has played well, the Winnipeg goaltender, but the Winnipeg defense in front of him has been the star of the show. They've held Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who I've already outlined as being the best 1-2 punch in the NHL, to 0 points through 2 games, and more importantly, Edmonton has scored 1 goal through 2 games as a team. Their offense has been absolutely absent, and the Winnipeg defense is a huge reason why. They're ahead 2-0. Game 3 coming up Sunday evening. And Winnipeg obviously in the driver's seat in this game. If Edmonton can do something now on the road, right, even with no fans in the stands in Canada in this early part of the playoffs at least, there's no fans, so maybe there's no home ice advantage for Winnipeg, but still they get to play at home, and you like that feeling of playing at home, and they're ahead in the series 2-0. So Winnipeg is definitely in the driver's seat. I'm curious to see what Edmonton can do to try to get out of this muck. Speaking of weird offense, Toronto against Montreal. Toronto lost their captain, one of their leaders, John Tavares, in Game 1 against Montreal due to an injury, a scary play. I don't really think it was dirty. You'll hear more about that in the show, I know, but that was a big loss for Toronto in Game 1, and they were not able to win that game. Paul Byron scored an incredible goal to win that game for Montreal, but then the Toronto offense looked right at home in Game 2, and they dominated Montreal. They kind of more of what people were expecting. John Tavares is an excellent player, but Toronto is good enough to win this series against a not great Montreal team without him, so I still expect that Toronto will win the series. Hopefully, obviously, John Tavares is okay in the long haul. And in the West Division, 2 strange series. Vegas and Minnesota played a very close Game 1. Cam Talbot in Minnesota was outstanding. They pulled that game off in overtime, but Vegas has rattled off the last 3. They're deep. They're such a great team, Vegas is, and that is what's been so good for them over the last couple of seasons since they made the Stanley Cup Final crazily in their first year of existence. All facets of this team are on fire. Marc-Andre Fleury, their goaltender, has been fantastic so far, the best goalie in the playoffs so far, and Vegas is going to wrap this series up before too long. They lead 3-1, and Colorado ahead of St. Louis 3-0 in this series. Their Game 4 is on Sunday afternoon. I fully believe that Colorado is going to wrap this series up on Sunday. Their offense has been tremendous. Nathan McKinnon has been otherworldly. The rest of his line has been good, and their defense and Philip Grubauer, their goaltender, has been more than good enough. The St. Louis offense has not been able to put it together consistently enough to really have a chance to win this series. I think Colorado wins it in 4.
Great insight as always, Tim. Thank you very much, and thank you for being on the show. Moving forward, the PGA Tour has been in full effect, and Nicholson isn't doing too bad so far. Just pulling up the stats real quick. Phil Nicholson is leading the pack at 7 under. Then it's Koepka at 6 under. So there's a lot of good things going on here. You can win $12 million by winning the PGA Tour, and it's not at one of the easiest of courses. The Ocean course has been notorious for its very strong winds and being able to move the ball as it wants to. Players have been doing a great job this year of keeping the ball in the spots that they like, but moving forward, it will be a hard task because Sunday is always one of the worst days for golf. But just, looking at some things real quick, three of the top six golfers are South African. So really doing a great job there. Going down the list, looking for some of my favorite players. Ricky Fowler's tied for 18th, and he's even. Not doing such a good job, but golf is hard, so I don't want to make it sound worse. Jordan Spieth also tied for 18th at even. And then as you go down the list even further, you see some other players who really don't do that well at these courses, especially the Ocean course, once again with that strong wind. But Bubba Watson finished 14 over, and he did not make the cut. So, I mean, this is a very, very strong wind course. Not something to be taken lightly in the slightest. So, with that mentioned, that's going to be it for the PGA Tour. We are filming this Sunday morning on May the 23rd, so the course isn't over. The tournament isn't over. So, by the time you're watching this, you already know who the winner is. But, I'm filming this before the course is over, so don't get your hopes up for me to tell you the winner. And then another thing we're going to do is talk about how Stanford is no longer cutting any of the sports programs. That was honestly a huge thing that was talked about everywhere. But, I mean, it's one of those things that, you just don't want to see those sports programs get cut, because these student athletes work so hard to get there, and then once they get there, you're just going to pull their legs out from under them, and it's a shady move. But, I mean, it's understandable because, university is there for the education. The university is not there for the sports, even though sometimes it looks like it is. You really got to take it one step at a time. So, I mean, the sports they were going to cut were men's volleyball, wrestling, field hockey, men's and women's fencing, lightweight rowing, men's rowing, co-ed and women's sailing, squash, and then synchronized swimming. So just looking at these sports, I mean, these are not prime sports, right? They're not going to cut basketball, women's or men's. They're not going to cut football. They're not going to cut, softball or baseball. Those are huge top-of-the-line sports. But looking at these sports, out of all of them, I would have to say that wrestling does not deserve to be in there, because wrestling, they won a weight class in nationals for wrestling, and their players had to wear black singlets just because they weren't allowed to rep the Stanford logo anymore, being that the program was going to be cut. Men's and women's fencing, I don't know the exact stats on it, but that would be a very, very good chance to get your students into the Olympics, because fencing is one of the things that America needs to start excelling at in order to be taken seriously in that Olympic sport. Rowing, when I think of rowing, I think of more of an Ivy League school, but if they're doing the rowing, let them do the rowing. I mean, they're there anyways. Sailing, I mean, you're in California, you're right on the ocean, let them sail. Whether or not you compete, just give them a chance to go out there and sail. Give them a scholarship to be there, because students have worked their whole life just to get to the scholarship, get to the opportunity to be in a college and play sports. It's an amazing opportunity. Squash and synchronized swimming. Synchronized swimming, I think that was kind of a fad back in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. If you still do it nowadays, you're either super dedicated or you were just joking around growing up and your parents forced you to do it eventually, and you were just wow, this is no longer fun. But honestly, if you're giving people scholarships to be there to synchronize swim, let them do it. Keep giving them the money. Stanford is not losing money. That's not why they're cutting these programs. They're cutting the programs because they're not bringing in as much money as other programs. If you take the football profit alone and you applied it to these 11 sports, Stanford would never have to close anything, because Stanford football makes hand over fist over fist over fist when it comes to money. It's unbelievable. Every D1 sport does it. UW-Madison could afford to pay, I believe the stat was 55% of its students just off of the gross revenue from football alone. So that's one thing you really have to be on the lookout for. And then a couple other sports are canceling. Men's volleyball. Honestly, men's volleyball doesn't have the same appeal as women's volleyball because men's volleyball is not a sexually triggered sport. As sad as it is to say, most people that do not know about volleyball watch women's volleyball first just because of the fact that they are women. Field hockey, once again, I mean, if you have it as a college sport and you're not doing good at it, just keep recruiting. Men's and women's fencing already talked about. So, I mean, that's basically it. Those 11 sports, why would you cut them? There's no reason to, but now they're not cutting them. Congratulations to all the athletes who no longer have to look for different colleges. And hopefully, the young bucks who are watching this show, hopefully you can pick one of those sports and go to Stanford, because Stanford is a very prestigious, very, very prestigious college or university to go to. So, honestly, I'd love to see anybody go there. And now we're going to turn things over a little bit more triggered towards baseball. I have two people actually coming in to talk about baseball. The first one being a high school best friend. Growing up with him, it was a really fun guy. His name is Brock Guzzi. He plays college baseball, actually. And I asked him, what are some of the hardest pitches to hit in baseball? And I kind of stumped him a little bit, but let's see what he brings to the table. Brock, take it away.
All right, what's going on, everybody? My name is Brock Guzzi, if you guys are not familiar with my face or who I am. I'm one of Jacob's longtime friends from high school. We both went to Rockford Lutheran High School in Rockford, Illinois. But yeah, we've been good friends for a while now. Obviously, he's doing great things at Avila now, but I know that in high school, he was our PA guy for baseball. He would put on some of the best walk-up songs in the conference, I would have to say. And I would say Illinois. I mean, our walk-up songs were definitely top-notch. You know, the timing was always perfect. Didn't miss a walk-up song. Had a great speech announcing our names. Jacob was top tier, you know. Even for the basketball games, best starting lineups. Jacob knows what he's doing when it comes to, you know, the PA. So Avila, you guys have got a good one. Cherish him down there. You know, he knows what he's doing. He's got some experience. But anyway, Jacob really asked me to be on the podcast today just because I'm a big sports guy myself, like he is. He played football in high school, big football player. But I played basketball, baseball, and golf. So we got, you know, every end of the spectrum kind of together. But he really wanted me to talk about baseball today because of the three sports that I play, I would say baseball, I've played the most of the three for sure. Maybe golf. Baseball probably, though, just because I've done it for longer. But, yeah. Baseball, you know, it's one of those sports where you play when you're 5 years old, and then, I mean, obviously you don't have to, but I would play in the summer as well, you know, travel to a bunch of different cities and play in different tournaments, you know, kind of playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day long. That was kind of the way summer worked, you know. Half your week was for baseball, half of it's for fun, you know, which is how I liked it. Not for everybody, but that's how I like to spend my summers. But, you know, that's why I think that Jacob asked me to talk about the topic of some of the hardest pitches to hit in baseball because, you know, as we've seen this year in at least Major League Baseball, the batting average is all-time low. There's been how many no-hitters as of I can't even count anymore. I think 5 or 6 or 7, something like that. I mean, craziness. And we're already only in end of May. So there's bound to be more, you would think. Pitching is getting insane with the spin rates and velocity. I mean, it seems like everybody in the major leagues comes in and throws 100 miles an hour with a stupid slider and a nice sinker or something like that, something to that effect. But at least for me, and playing in high school and college, and like I said, I was a left-handed batter, played a little third base, second base, first base, outfield, good kind of utility, left-handed batter. But a lefty, obviously, is going to have a little different perspective than a righty just because there's less lefties than righties. And, you know, a left-handed pitcher, I would say a left-handed pitcher, obviously, for me as a left-handed batter, was much worse than having to face a right-handed batter or a right-handed pitcher. I would much rather have faced a right-handed pitcher every at bat, just because as a left-handed batter, a left-hander, his arm is closest to you, and his off-speed pitches, he's going to throw a curveball, and it's going to break away from you instead of breaking into you. And obviously, a pitch breaking towards you is going to be much easier to hit than a ball that's moving slow and away from you. When also a lefty can throw up and in a fastball, and now in the major leagues, he's throwing it 100 miles an hour right across the letters, and if you're not looking for it within a split second, it's by you. But like I said, for me at least, it's left-handed pitchers when they can actually throw a nice curveball and, they can locate the fastball. And but for myself, I actually liked when a lefty would throw me inside because I felt like I could turn on it a lot more, have a little bit of power. But the outside pitches, at least for me, that's the other thing about the hardest pitches to hit. Everyone's going to have a different answer, Everyone's a different baseball player. Some people are going to love it out, down and in, so they can take it to the opposite field, or down and away, so they can take it to the opposite field. Some people are going to like it inside, so they can turn on it. That's kind of what I think I was. I liked it inside because I had a lot of bat control on the inside part of the plate. But yeah, but like an outside fastball for me, I just didn't see it well. I don't know what it was. The first couple of years in high school, I just thought the umpires were really bad. And after about 70 of the same calls that they were calling strikes, I kind of started to finally realize that it actually might be a strike. So maybe it wasn't umpires the whole time. So I would say outside for me, but at least in the major leagues, moving on to the major leagues, all these guys now are just throwing 100 miles an hour up in the zone, and then they're going to strike you out with something in the dirt, or they're going to throw it 100 miles an hour again. But luckily, I never had to deal with that. If I did have to deal with that, I wouldn't be in the major leagues very long. I would be a pretty short stint. But yeah, that's what I would have to say for my hardest pitches to hit as a wrap. Brock Guzzi, hardest pitches to hit, left-handed batter. If there's one, the prototypical pitcher that I would not want to come into the game is a left-handed pitcher that can throw a nice hard fastball on the outside part of the plate and then mix in a nice little curveball that breaks away from me, because I feel like with a righty, I see the ball better. I'm more used to seeing righties because just like a lefty batter, there's less lefty pitchers. So, you're more used to seeing a righty. So that's why my answer sticks is what it is. Lefty pitcher throws that fastball on the outside part of the plate and mixes in that off speed. It doesn't have to be a curveball. Maybe it's a changeup. Maybe it's a splitter. Something along those lines, But that's what I would have to say.
Yeah, Guzzi, that's honestly a great thing. You really don't think about it, lefty versus righty, but when you get up into the higher stage, the show, those lefty pitchers who can throw gas on the outside corner, that's something you really have to be worried about, especially when they also have breaking balls that can really just make you look like a fool at the plate. Everybody grows up seeing the righty pitchers, but when you have to transition to a lefty pitcher, it's not as easy as it looks, because that inside fastball for you is an outside fastball for a left-handed batter. So, moving forward, I have another guy who's going to talk about the no-hitters we've seen so far this season, and how many of them were almost perfect games. So without more further ado, we're going to send it back to Kansas City, not really for Tim Hackett, but for another guy named Brian Coffey. He also plays college baseball. He's one of the pitchers for the Avila Eagles, where I go to school as well as him. So, Coffey, take it away.
Thank you, Kruck. Once again, my name is Brian Coffey. I am here to talk about John Means' recent no-hitter against the Seattle Mariners and Corey Kluber's recent no-hitter against his former team in the Texas Rangers. Before I get into John Means and Corey Kluber, I want to talk about how there has already been 6 no-hitters thrown this year, and we are not even halfway through the season yet. We just passed the quarter point. It makes you realize that it's really becoming a pitcher's game with so many pitchers in the league right now throwing their fastball velocity is upwards of 97 miles per hour. Several people in the league now throwing triple digits, which used to be extremely rare. It's becoming a pitcher's game. Hitters, they have to face different guys every night from different arm slots, throwing throwing upwards of, like I just said, 97, 98 miles per hour. Getting into John Means, though, his no-hitter last Wednesday for the Orioles was the first one since 1969. They had one 25 years ago, but it wasn't a complete game. It was 3 separate pitchers combining for a no-hitter. John Means proving me wrong. You don't need velo, obviously, to get the job done. You need location and command. John Means' fastball is only about 94, 95 miles per hour. I say that like it's slow, but at that level, it's just not like, it doesn't stand out. He had faced 27 batters, 27 up, 27 down. It would have been a perfect game, actually, but there was a fielding error, unfortunately.
Yeah, not to cut you off, but one error away from a perfect game is such a sad moment. And one hit away from a perfect game the same way. Nolan Ryan, all those games where he was one hit away from a perfect game, one-hit games are super rare. But then again, no-hitters, perfect games are even more rare. So that's honestly a great thing as well. Another guy I want to talk about is Turnbull. He had the first no-hitter since 2011, Justin Verlander with the Tigers. And he's been playing pretty well, lights out, This, honestly, there's been a lot of pitchers this year where, years in the past, they're on their last strike with whatever team, and then they throw a no-hitter. And everybody's like, oh my goodness, I've been a day one fan. And you're like, no. Like Joe Means, never heard of him before his no-hitter. Turnbull, never heard of him before his no-hitter. Corey Kluber is really the only pitcher this year who's pitched a no-hitter that people are honestly like, yeah, I could have seen it coming. 2016, Corey Kluber, I could see him pitching a no-hitter because he was that good. Win the Cy Young. Go, take your team to the World Series. Be one of the best pitchers in the World Series. And it just didn't happen to fall in his favor. But baseball has been taking a huge leap when it comes towards more defensively or offensively played baseball. Looking at it, people want to see the home runs. People want to see the hard hits. People want to see sliding doubles. People want to see inside the park homers. They don't want to see great pitching, which honestly, it's kind of sad because anybody can hit any Joe Schmo can get lucky 2 times, 3 times out of 10 and get a base hit, But pitching is one of those just absolutely, you have to be perfect at it in order to make the show. So just, pitching is really taking a leap forward. And so far this year, we've had 6 no-hitters. We are on pace for 23 no-hitters. And I'm not that good at math, so I couldn't come up with that number. But some MLB analysts and like real smart mathematicians came up with that. We are on pace for 23 no-hitters. And for all those at home who don't know, the record for no-hitters is 8. We are 2 no-hitters away from tying the record set long ago, back in the 19s, 1800s, whenever it was set. Wasn't like last year, all right? It was forever ago. And we're on pace to beat it. And, some of the MLB pitchers, well-known pitchers, have been asked about it. And Clayton Kershaw said, which I am paraphrasing, please don't, cancel me. He basically said, it's not good for baseball. People want to see the home runs. People want to see doubles. People want to see hits. That's what people show up for, because you can't get a souvenir for a strikeout. They just throw the ball right back to the pitcher. You foul a ball off over the fence, that's a souvenir. You foul a ball, or you hit a ball, a home run, that's a souvenir. People don't want to see perfect games. People don't want to see no-hitters. People want to see a slugfest, a 14-13 win. That's what people want to see. And he makes a good point, because nobody really likes low-scoring games over any kind of sports. You look at it, one of the least popular Super Bowls in modern history was the New England Patriots versus the LA Rams. The Rams scored 3 points, the Patriots scored 13. One of the best defensive games of all time. But nobody liked it because it was low scoring. It's the Super Bowl. People expect, coming down to the wire, it's 42-49, We didn't get that there. And for true football fans, that was a great game because you saw defense, you saw careful planning. Both of these teams coming in were phenomenal offenses, and they were both shut down so spectacularly. It was a great game by both teams. There's nowhere to hang your hat on it. You know, the LA offense, 3 points is kind of a shame, but it really shocked Vegas because the over-under on the game, I believe, was somewhere in the 50s, and the over and the exact score ended up being 16. So, you know, Vegas really, really got lucky there because there were a lot of people betting over. But high-scoring sports, that's what people want to see anymore. Whether it's baseball, softball, football, basketball, they don't care. High-scoring sports, high adrenaline, high octane, keep it moving, keep it going. They want to see a lot of points. That's all they care about, really. So you want to give the fans what they're looking for, but at the same time, nobody in the baseball organization, baseball business, will ever be mad about somebody throwing a no-hitter or a perfect game. You throw a one-hitter, a two-hitter, they're not going to be mad at you, but it's not something that they want to see unless one of those one or two hits were, you know, dingers, home runs, long balls, whatever you call them. Moving forward, just looking at it real quick, we got some pretty good stuff coming up for you guys to wrap around the show. The Hall of Fame induction for the NBA was last weekend, and it was pretty emotional for a lot of people. Vanessa Bryant gave the Hall of Fame speech for Kobe. Tim Duncan, he was there, and then Kevin Garnett, you know, he was also there. So let's jump right into that one while we got time. So Vanessa Bryant, you know, everybody's known her for being such a strong person since Kobe Bryant's passing, along with Gigi and everybody else on that helicopter. Not to shortchange anybody, because it was a tragic moment for the entire nation when that happened. Kobe Bryant would have loved to been there, would have loved to have been there. That is exactly what she said, because, you know, Kobe worked hard. He knew he was going to be a Hall of Famer when he retired. He was looking forward to this day, and he didn't get it, which is sad. Tim Duncan went on record saying that was the most nervous he's ever been, and that man has played in some of the most impactful games in the NBA history. He beat the Heat in the finals to prevent, you know, another three-peat. He beat another team in the finals that I'm slipping right now, but I mean, it was out crazy. Honestly, Tim Duncan is not a speaker. Everybody knows that. So him saying that he's the most nervous might be the honest truth, because when you get in front of a bunch of people and start talking, it's hard for some people. Me personally, I've been speaking in front of tons of people since I was in 7th grade, so it's easy for me to talk to people. It's easy for me to talk to the camera as well, but I mean, for some people it is hard. So mad props to him being able to get up there and give a speech. And then Kevin Garnett, I feel like those are the biggest three that really got inducted this year, because, you know, honestly, those three were huge. KG, when he ended up going and playing with the Celtics and formed, you know, that big three, Rajon Rondo, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, huge. When they all moved over to the Nets, huge, but they failed. But, I mean, he was still awesome with the Timberwolves, too. Kobe, lifetime Laker, one of the few who can honestly say it. Him, Magic. Honestly, I can't really name that many more because there's so many great Lakers. And then Tim Duncan, lifetime Spur. I mean, he helped Steve Kerr get the only 4-peat ever. Not that Steve Kerr really matters when it comes to a 4-peat. He's got enough rings as a coach already. But, I mean, it's crazy. These three players really brought so many fans into basketball, because these three players were so different, but yet played the same sport. You know, obviously the easiest one to talk about is Tim Duncan, the big fundamental. You know, he played the game how it was meant to be played. He played it, you know, as taught by a VHS tape. You know, there was no flashy stuff in his game. He played it how the game was originally meant to be played back in the Baltimore barn or wherever it started. And it was just, it was honestly poetry in motion. Like, he played it the right way. And that was fun. One of the funniest things about him is that he was going to be an Olympic swimmer. The pool didn't have any water in it, so he said, okay, I guess I'll just be a Hall of Famer at basketball. You know, everybody's got a backup plan like that, right? You know, in case this doesn't work, I'm just going to go casually join the MLB, be the best pitcher of all time. And then there's a guy like Kobe, who, you know, he's out there, super smart, basically a coach on the floor. And he is the superstar. He's out there making things happen, making it look cool. He actually changed his number from 8 to 24, and both of his number changes. When he played his number 8, that's a Hall of Fame career. When he played his number 24, that's a Hall of Fame career. He has 2 Hall of Fame careers in one person, and he was probably one of the best athletes from that class. Kevin Garnett, now that's another player entirely as well. Played the same position as Tim Duncan, but this guy was big, he was loud, he was vocal, he was looking for the big play. He was looking to slam it on your face, walk over top of you, and then spit on your forehead while you're laying on the ground. This man, some say he's dirty. I say he's just physical and he's out there. I mean, honestly, you have to have something that makes you unique in the NBA. People don't remember Scottie Pippen because he wasn't unique. People don't remember him also because he played with Jordan, which is also a pretty big deal. I'm not gonna overshadow that. But, I mean, people really don't remember him because he just played the game how it was meant to be played. People remember Dennis Rodman more because he was out there. His hair, you know, his nose rings, earrings, whatever he's piercing. Like, the stuff he'd wear. Dude was out there. He was just being himself. Michael Jordan, because he was so good at the game. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because he had the sky hook that nobody could stop, except for Bill Walton, you know, the couple of years he was with the Celtics. I mean, just looking at it, you have to have something unique to make you really stand out, and Kevin Garnett had that. You know, that may contradict my previous point with Tim Duncan, but I don't think it does, because what Tim Duncan did to stand out was nothing. He didn't do anything special to stand out, and that's what made him stand out. The fact that he simply played the game how it was meant to be played made him the best basketball player. He wasn't a little bit standout, but a little bit normal. That man was straight up normal. None of that stuff, right? There was no special effects. There was no, high-flying special dunk. This man played the game how he was taught to play it, fundamentally. Moving forward, we got a couple more things to talk about before I let you guys go today. Manager for the White Sox, LaRusso. He said there's no riff in the locker room after he went and said that his player, Yermin Mercedes, after getting hit by a pitch, that was the right thing after swinging and hitting a home run on a 3-0 count. If I'm a player in the locker room, I'm not agreeing with that. Trevor Bauer, one of the few MLB players that I follow religiously on my Twitter page, because I love how people have identified him as the villain of baseball for some reason. And I follow him, and he tweeted, he said, if you hit a home run off of me 3-0, I'll not be mad. Which is one of the few players who I honestly expected to say that. But he backed it up. He said, this is baseball. I'm not out here to throw a perfect game. I'm not out here trying to strike you out if you're not going to swing. I want you to swing. That's what makes baseball fun. And honestly, 3-0 counts are kind of a very interesting pitch as of late, because Fernando Tatis Jr. got in trouble with a 3-0 count. I mean, Yermin Mercedes just got in trouble for a 3-0 count. And, LaRusso, old school with the Cardinals, very calm, cool, collected. Back to the basketball thing, fundamental, He's the kind of guy where you show up, play the game, and you leave in a shirt and tie. Like, old-fashioned as it gets, right? Then you have the entire White Sox starting lineup in most of their rotation, and they're out there. Tim Anderson, Yermin Mercedes, Jose Abreu, Nick Madrigal. You fill in, even Yasmani Grandal, Lucas Giolito, Lance Lynn. All of them are high-flying, high-octane, in your face players. They're fun to be around, and that's because you love watching them play. So it's very interesting to see a guy or a manager who just so fundamental, so straightforward, so sir, yes sir, and having, a team that's out there having fun. It's one of those things where you almost have to sit back and realize, hey, this isn't going to be the way I can manage anymore, because this team is not going to respond to that the best. You have to be able to move with the times. Not going to get into the Brewers this week because I haven't had anything to really report for them. But moving forward, one of the last things we're going to talk about today is last week we talked about NFL Week 1 schedule. Now we're going to talk about NFL Week 2 schedule. Obviously, I don't know the records of these teams yet, but just looking at it from an 0-0 standpoint, here are the games I think you should be on the lookout for. New York Giants versus Washington is going to be Thursday night of Week 2. Honestly, nothing against these two franchises, but the fact that the tickets are still $50, it's going to be a snooze fest. Might as well not even watch it. It is football, though, so it's still going to have a high turnout rate. But honestly, that wouldn't be the game that I'd spend all my money on if I'm betting. Second game, Bear fan at heart. So Cincinnati is in Chicago for Week 2. Those tickets are around $150, and for some reason that ticket price is kind of high. When you look at it, Burrow should be back, and Justin Fields should probably be starting that game. Not a whole lot of faith in Andy Dalton to really win it. So two young bucks at quarterbacks going at each other. Chicago Bears trying to salvage what they can from that 2017, 2018 season where they tried to make a couple runs at it. Nagy got Coach of the Year. Honestly, Nagy and Ryan Pace are on the way out. There's nothing you can tell me to convince me otherwise. They're on the way out. They're gone. Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow. They just got the other LSU wide receiver, Jamar Chase. Honestly, they need some more offensive linemen if they really want to be taken seriously, because they just can't really do it. So another game to be on the lookout for as well, New England at New York. That'll be, as I said, in New York. New England just picked up Mac Jones, but they still want Cam Newton to fight for that starting spot. I believe that whoever starts that game will be the starter moving forward. And then Zach Wilson is, second start as the QB for the Jets. I think that first start for him is either going to be very tough, and then this will be a bounce-back game, or this will be the second straight great game that he'll have played. Either way, I think he's going to do pretty good. Moving down the list, another great game to honestly be on the lookout for. I think Dallas versus the Rams is going to be a great game. Dallas, hopefully they got Prescott back. Ezekiel Elliott, he's kind of on the hot seat from the Cowboys fans I've been talking with. They really like this young running back, so we're going to see that game, who's really the one who's going to be starting. Tampa Bay, honestly, they're getting old. Said it in the last one, but they are getting old, so you got to watch that one. Another game I'm really looking at, Denver versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville's really stepped up their offense the last couple of years. Denver just got Teddy Bridgewater. They have Drew Lock. Neither of them are really prime quarterbacks, but Teddy Bridgewater's proven himself some weeks in the NFL, so I think he may be starting that game. But Denver really needs to get things shaken up if they really want a chance against that game. Last one we're going to talk about, Kansas City versus Baltimore. That game should be one for the ages. I think that's going to be a high-scoring, high-octane game because both teams are known for offense. Lamar Jackson, as some people call him, the running back as quarterback. Just all those great players for their offense as well as the Kansas City offense. Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, whatever running back they decide to put in because they have a boatload. And then Patrick Mahomes. We're going to have to see how the Kansas City offensive line really meshes, see how they can work together moving forward. But that should be a great game, honestly, and it is in Baltimore. So it won't be extremely cold, but it'll be a bit chillier than Kansas City, as a guy who's been there for a couple times. And then the Monday night game, Detroit versus Green Bay. If Aaron Rodgers stays, this game should be a blowout because Jared Goff is not the missing piece for the Lions. They need a lot more than him to really turn this program around. But if Aaron Rodgers does somehow leave, this should be one of the better games fought because both teams would be pretty bad if Aaron Rodgers left. So those are honestly my takes for week 2. Looking at the list of what I wanted to talk about today, we got through all of it. So thank you all for tuning in. It's honestly a blast every time I get to talk to you guys. Starting my new job this upcoming week, I'm going to be working at the milk factory in Chemung with my sister and dad, so that'll be fun. But I'm always going to make sure I come back to you guys every weekend and have them ready to go on Monday for everybody. So until next time, it's Jacob Krugenberg, just telling you all to remember something, because I don't remember anything. I'll see you.